And now let's bring in Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. Seems like perfect timing to bring the senator in. Senator, thank you so much for being with us. You know, we could actually turn that to Democrats who are desperately trying to figure out this second term. What's the best way to push back against Donald Trump and some of the things that he did last week? Cory Booker went on the floor and raised his voice and went after a couple of Democrats on an issue. I'm curious your thoughts about that. I'm curious, what is the best approach for Democrats as we move toward, well, two very important governor's races this fall and then off-term elections next year that are going to make a big difference in where this country goes the last 2 years of Donald Trump's term?
So I think of it this way. There's short term, and that is we block what we can block. We, use the moves we've got in the Senate and in the House, and we're doing that. It's limited, but it's not nothing. And so you use those. But the other part is get focused overall on what's happening in this country. And I want to put it this way. It's about, are we running this country for a handful of billionaires? Or are we running this country for the American people, for working families? We are focused increasingly on affordability. Donald Trump promised on day one that he was going to lower costs for Americans. And what has he done? The cost of groceries is up. The cost of utilities is up. The cost of health care is up. The cost of housing is up. And the Republicans now have their big signature achievement under Donald Trump's direction, and that is every single Republican in Congress voted to cut health care for 17 million Americans and give trillions of dollars in tax breaks to a handful of billionaires, billionaire corporations, and some extra left over for the millionaires. And I think that's the part we've just got to use as the tip on the spear and talk about it over and over and over. If you think this country should be run for the billionaires, go with the Republicans because they've laid it out. If you think it ought to be run for everybody else, that's where the Democrats are.
Well, I guess, Senator, that's what I don't understand. It seems to me, and again, it's much easier for something to look easy from the cheap seats. I'm sure if you're sitting up high watching the U.S. Open, it looks all simple. If you're down on the court itself and it's coming at you 130 miles an hour, it's harder. But in this case, if I were a Democrat out on the campaign trail, I would just talk about, like you said, hospitals are going to be shut down in rural America. Kids are not going to be able to get primary health care from Medicaid. Our parents are not going to be able to get the type of care they deserve because most nursing homes are funded by Medicaid, especially in rural America. There's been a crisis in rural America health care for the past decade, even before this bill. And now this is going to exacerbate it. So it's not just blue state America, it's red state America. And why? Why is this being done? It's being done so they can give tax cuts to billionaires and monopolists and people from Silicon Valley to Wall Street. How is this not a unifying message, not just for Democrats, but for everybody in the working class and the middle class?
You got it, Joe. It is. And in fact, that's the mayoral race right now in New York City. That's Zohran Mamdani. How does this young guy come in, doesn't have the money to spend that Cuomo has, doesn't have the position that Adams has, doesn't have the backing of the billionaires? How does that work? He comes in and he talks about how to make New York City affordable for families. And he says, we got to talk about housing, we got to talk about the price of groceries, and we got to talk about childcare. Because without those young families who are trying to make it, people can't make it in New York City unless they're rich. And he wants to make this city work for working people. And that's what it's all about. That's why I think this race in New York City is so important, because Zohran managed to win by talking about affordability. Democrats across this country will win by talking about affordability. And then, and here's the key, not just talking about it, delivering on it.
Yeah, certainly growing consensus that affordability will be a key issue next year. Democrats, at least for now, saddled with pretty poor poll numbers as well, even as President Trump's approval also dips. Let's talk about the idea of triage, the idea of, as you sat down, we discussed off air about this fire hose. It's hard the flooding the zone. It's hard to know what to focus on, the triaging of what to do. The firing of the BLS commissioner over the jobs data reports. I assume you believe this is something worth focusing on because of the way it challenges the credibility of the nation.
Yeah. So let me just back up a little on this one. You may say, why do I care about this obscure agency? Nobody pays any attention. The United States sets the gold standard around the world for the collection and reporting of high-quality economic data. And why does that matter? Because so many decisions that policymakers make at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level, so many decisions that businesses make are based on trying to understand where the economy is, where there are opportunities, where there are risks, and that's all based on just good data. And the person who's in charge of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, been there a long time, before that has served both Republican and Democratic administrations. They don't interpret the numbers, they collect the numbers and report them accurately. When Donald Trump moves in and says, I don't like the numbers, these are bad job numbers, and they are bad job numbers, and he says, off with her head, we're getting rid of her, what he does is he politicizes the numbers themselves. And the person who replaces her, what does that person do next? Do they only serve up nice numbers? Do they sort of re-sand the numbers, paint them a little different color? No, if that happens, then effectively you blind the United States and all of our policymakers, all of our decision makers, all of our businesses, and you diminish us around the world. People say one more place where it's not about reality, it's about whatever lives in Donald Trump's head.
Well, in corruption, the perception of corruption also is so damaging to the perception of the security of the United States economy and markets. Can you talk about crypto? I want to talk about crypto because it really is just insane how much money Donald Trump and his family are making right now off of crypto. Millions, if not billions of dollars. What kind of rules, what are you trying to do in Congress so that public officials aren't using crypto in this uncharted, unregulated space to enrich themselves?
So you've got it exactly right. So remember, just before he gets sworn in, Donald Trump puts out a coin. He makes $1 bazillion on it, just off being president and being famous. But that's not enough. Then he starts investing in these stable coins, right? Or I shouldn't say investing. These companies come to him and say, we'll offer you a slice of the business, right? And the people who are doing this, the guy, in fact, who's in charge of the main company that's done this, is also looking for a pardon from his crimes. That gives you an idea of what's happening here. And then it opens up a super highway to corruption. Because now it is possible for someone who wants a favor from the president of the United States, and he's got a lot of favors to hand out, to go buy his coin, right? To say, I'll get his stable coin. And Donald Trump makes more and more money, and it's all right out there in public. No more having to have a brown paper bag full of cash, that you got to walk in and leave in the Oval Office. Instead, now, right out in public. Here is what I'm buying in crypto, Donald Trump, and I would like a pardon. I'm a country that would like a different tariff rate. I'm a company that would like to be able to merge with another company. Surely the president of the United States could help those who are helping him personally. And that's the problem we've got right now. Crypto, we've passed half of it, a stable coin bill that's gone through Congress. And look, we need crypto regulation, but we don't need the regulation written by the crypto industry that supercharges this kind of corruption. We need regulation that limits the corruption and the ability of elected officials to trade in it, that also limits the ability to blow up the economy with crypto, that also limits the ability of folks like terrorists and drug traffickers to be able to use it as their currency, and also that has adequate consumer protection. And right now, what we've got is weak restrictions in this area. We've got another proposal that's coming in another part of the crypto world. We need to get restrictions in place overall to tamp down on the corruption and to make it a safer product to deal in.
Senator, can we get back to the Democrats for a second? There was a very good piece in the Financial Times over the weekend talking about the quality of politicians that's needed at the moment around the issue of charisma. And you look at the field from the Democratic Party, you mentioned Mamdani, clearly Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has it, Senator Sanders has had it, you've had it yourself. And then I look abroad and I see somebody like Keir Starmer, not a lot of charisma, but then along comes Nigel Farage and he's at the top of the polls. And one of the things that perhaps unites these candidates is they tend to be more on the political fringes of their own parties. Maybe they're more populist. What does that say, that need for sort of charisma and communication skills that seems at the moment in this media environment to be embodied more by populist candidates? What does it say for the center of American politics?
You know, look, the way I see it is different. I see it as you get out and fight for the things that people care about and that matter in their lives, and you show you're willing to fight hard. You show that you're willing to get knocked on your butt and get back up and get back in the fight. That's what matters to people. I think people are tired of hearing this kind of mushy, soft, it's all been tested and sanded and fluffed. Instead, they just want to know, look, they just want a life that works for them. They just want to have an opportunity. They want to have an opportunity to be able to afford some housing, some food, some health care when they need it, to be able to get their kids educated, maybe to be able to build a little security. And the people I know and know well, like Mamdani, like Ocasio-Cortez, like Sanders, are all in there fighting, and they know what they're fighting for. They're fighting for an America that's not just controlled by a handful of billionaires who dump literally millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into campaigns. They want somebody who is actually there to fight for them. And that's what I think these races are about. That's what I think the New York mayoral race is about. And that's what I think the 2026 races all around the country will be about.
Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, thank you so much for coming on this morning. It's great to see you. Her latest opinion piece for Rolling Stone on why billionaires are doing all they can to stop Zohran Mamdani is available to read online right now.